Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here to get back into the playoffs. The wild card round is over. The divisional round begins. And I think we got a lot better matchups this week. I think we're going to be a little bit more entertained with the games this week. At least sort of looking at them, it looks like they'll be a whole lot more interesting, at least on paper here. Really good matchups. I think we got a little bit of a dud over Wild Card Weekend, but I think this weekend will make up for it for sure. What are you expecting this weekend, Achilles?
I'm expecting a lot of exciting games this week. As you mentioned, last week was a bit of a bummer for a couple of matchups there, but I think that even when you look at those teams that got blown out, I think that they could have potentially put up a good matchup. They just didn't seem to bring in that particular week. But I think this week is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited pretty much for all these games. So I can't wait to dive into these, especially a couple of them. I'm really intrigued how these matchups play out in this weekend of playoffs. It has me pumped because I like matchups where, one team does one thing well, another team does another thing well, and you just whose will is going to play out, whose game plan is going to play out, and whose little wrinkle is going to have something that sort of puts you over the top, or whose poor officiating crew comes over and screws us over in those.
We don't want that. That's what we don't want.
I don't know if we'll get that. I know Jerome Booger is not on one of these crews, so at least we won't get phantom holding penalties and random blown whistles in the middle of key drives sitting there in the red zone. Coaching decisions, I'm sure there'll be some poor ones that we get to hammer up on Monday or Tuesday when we do our review show. But let's dive into it. Let's dive into the first game. We'll go to the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans are 3.5 point favorites in this game. 47.5 is the total on this one. 2.5 on the spread, and the first half total is 23. So about a point difference on that first half spread there. 3.5, 2.5. It does go under a key number. I think we'll go through these like we did last week. Give just a pick on every game, and then at the end we'll just sort of have our best bets that we're probably going to put a little bit of wagering on. But this one's an interesting one because Tennessee's had the week off. Derrick Henry has been floated that he's playing the spread, seems to sort of be in line where he might not be playing. He technically has not been activated. He has been practicing, so I'm curious how much Derrick Henry we're going to get. I'm curious what the week off will do to the Tennessee Titans, and I'm curious how the Bengals will handle sort of next round of playoff pressure here. So what do you make of this game here, Bengals versus Titans?
Listen, I think this game has the potential to be actually one of the better matchups of the week, believe it or not. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've got the number one overall seed in the Tennessee Titans going up against a pretty hot Bengals team that has played pretty well as late, except for that last week when they pretty much took it as a bye week and benched all of their stars. But Cincinnati's coming off of a big win versus the Raiders, in which they were advanced. They were able to advance off the wild card round. But now they're going up against a much tougher team, in my opinion, and not just a much tougher team, but also a well-rested team, and a team that's probably going to get Derrick Henry back. Now, to what extent are we getting Henry back? I'm not certain. I don't think there's any way that he's going to be close to 100%. But I think that the thinking in Tennessee is that if we can somehow get 80% or 75% of Derrick Henry, it's still much better than 100% of everything else we've had.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this because this is one of those where the Bengals come in sort of hot, full of confidence, riding high as they closed out the season really, really well. I don't think they'd want a week off. If you ask them, do they want a week off? I think this is one of those times when the Bengals would be like, no, we want to keep playing. Let's ride this momentum. We're in a good rhythm. We're in a good flow. And Tennessee, they probably needed the week off. But I'm wondering if there's going to be a little rust to start out the game here. Really, after the... I think week 17, they were pretty much locked in there, so they haven't had a lot to play for. Sometimes that's a benefit. Sometimes it's a hindrance where you sort of lose your rhythm. I think we saw it last year in the Rams-Green Bay game when Green Bay sort of took a quarter and a half before they really, really got started in that one. And maybe that comes into play here. What I'm most interested about in this game is sort of the Tennessee Titans pass rush versus Cincinnati Bengals passing game. You saw last week they played a heavy pass rushing team in the Raiders. They were able to sort of bypass it. There was pressure there. There's always going to be pressure with a poor offensive line. But, I mean, Burrow got back, dropped back, quick out, quick passes to Higgins and Chase and Boyd. The ball did not hold in his hand, and they made plays. And I'm curious if they come in with the same sort of game plan here versus the Titans, whose front seven has been really, really good, very, very much improved on the season. But the secondary, I think, still leaves a little bit to be desired. Can they gain a little bit of an advantage there? And then I cross things over. What is the Cincinnati Bengals defense going to do? To start the season, it was really, really solid. But I think sort of week by week, it's sort of fallen off a little bit at a time. They seem to be one of those bend but don't break. They give up yards. They sort of locked down there down at the goal line. Tennessee, one of the better, red zone team. How does that matchup play out? And good news that Trey Hendrickson will be back for the Bengals this week after going out with a concussion versus the Raiders last week. But I'm curious, do you see any advantage on either side of matchup-wise on the Titans and the Bengals?
Definitely. You pretty much stole all my notes there. I had the same points that you did. The Cincinnati defense to start off the season was probably one of the better defenses in the league. And as the weeks progressed, they slowly got a little bit worse. A lot of it had to do with wear and tear. Some of it had to do with, injuries. And then also teams figuring out the type of schemes that they were running. Now, this Tennessee team, on the other hand, has actually, in my opinion, gotten better. Not that they're great by any means. They still have, plenty of weaknesses in that defense. But I think overall, especially compared to last season and what we remember from them, it's a much better, much improved defense. Very opportunistic. They take advantage of turnovers. And as you mentioned, they're not a lockdown defense, just like the Bengals. I think both defenses are pretty much on par. But if I had to take one, especially just how they played towards the end of the season, I would say that I think the Tennessee Titans have the edge on defense in this matchup. We switch it over to offense now, and you have to like what the Bengals have here. They have a bunch of young wide receivers. Mixon's playing really well from that backfield, and they seem to gel together really well. There's good chemistry going on there. But you're also going up against a pretty good offense in the Titans. Now, we didn't get what people expected they were going to get from Julio Jones. I believe he got one touchdown on the year, and that was pretty late on in the season. Now, a lot of that has to do with injuries and whatnot, things of that sort. How much of Derrick Henry are we going to see in this game? I don't know. But again, I go back to the way they've been playing as of late. Now, the media, everything I hear right now on sports radio and NFL TV and all that is the Bengals are an underdog here, but a lot of people like the Bengals. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that we really haven't seen the Titans play. Obviously, they had the week off, part of the benefit of getting that first number one seed. But they also didn't play anybody really tough towards the end of the year. And I think that's probably in the back of everybody's minds that we haven't really seen them compete. But this Tennessee team's still good. There's a reason why they're the number one seed overall, especially when you look at teams like the Bills and Chiefs who are still in these playoffs, and we consider them to be really good teams. So there's something to be said there. I believe it was Dynamite who sent me a stat regarding the running backs for Tennessee. This is prior to Derrick Henry coming back. The Titans became a more run-oriented offense as the season progressed after Henry got hurt. and the production was still there. I think the biggest difference with Henry compared to the other running backs, even though you get the same type of production overall, is that Derek doesn't need as many carries as those two other guys needed. And not just that, but he's a home run hitter. He's the kind of guy that can completely impact the game on one single run. And I think that's the difference that he brings in, which is why Tennessee fans are really excited to get him back. But there's definitely advantages for both teams on both sides of the ball, but there's also weaknesses there. And I think that they're definitely exploitable. I think it's going to be a very exciting game, and I'm really looking forward to watching this game.
Yeah, definitely so. And if I was having fun with the Dynamite, when he showed you said stat, I'd mentioned, they started running more because they watched Ryan Tannehill try to take over games for a couple of weeks there, and watched him throw 3 interceptions a game. So I can always have a little fun trolling the Dynamite here. What I'm really interested on a couple things here is how Cincinnati's going to come out and play. Are they going to try to sort of keep this game close and pound the rock? I think they can run the ball a little bit with Mixon back there. Or are they going to go, we're here. We have no fear because we've won our first playoff game in 30 plus years, and we're going to go out winging it and see if we can get this game sort of into a shootout and a big play contest. So I'm curious to see how that matchup plays out. And then I'm a little curious. I have in my head, narrative wise, how this plays out, where the up-and-coming Bengals, get the big upset over Tennessee. We all get into the mindset of, can they do it? Can they make the Super Bowl? They're a year too early, and they play a tough game versus Buffalo or Kansas City, lose. We have our show planned out for a preview show all next year. Everybody is piling on the Bengals and how great they're going to be, and then they pull the Cleveland Browns and win 7 games the next year, So that narrative is really sticking in my head. I can already see Stephen A. Smith screaming in July on First Take about how the Bengals could possibly have an undefeated season after making their, conference championship run in year 2, a little bit like the Jets did, 15 or 20 years ago. Granted, I think Mark Sanchez and Joe Burrow, totally different quarterbacks, but the Jets did make 2 conference championship games in that window there. How? I don't know, but they did. And then this Tennessee Titans team, a couple years ago, where they were the sort of young upstart to beat the Patriots and then got out to a big lead versus the Chiefs, and then sort of melted down there and didn't take care of business and ended up losing out. And granted, they've stayed a top team, but that narrative sticks in my head. I know that's stupid. You can't play out storyline narratives, but it does seem like that's something that would come full circle there. But really what I'm interested in is how the Bengals play this. Do they tighten in, get conservative, try to run the ball with Mixon, see if they can make this game close until the fourth quarter, or do they just come out, no fear, start winging the ball with, Chase, Higgins, and see if they can get some explosive plays and get this into a high-scoring type game?
Well, see, I think that's the biggest concern coming into this game, if you're a Bengals fan, is how is this offense going to approach this game? You would think that, after that big confidence boost that they got last week, winning that divisional matchup against the Raiders, that they'd probably come out really aggressive. But I think when you look at this Tennessee defense throughout the season, in this past season, they struggled defending the run. I believe they were in the bottom half of the league. I believe they were close to the bottom of the pack when it came to run defense. Where they tend to really shine is where they struggled last year, which was their pass defense. That's where they were, just about middle of the pack. That's where they're susceptible. But realistically, I think that this year, the way they've improved their pass defense, Cincinnati has to come out and implement the run. Not only is that going to help them, take some of the pressure off the pass rush, which is going to be a big issue for them with the offensive line they have. It's also going to open up the passing game to kind of, at least to mix it up a little bit and stay balanced. I think that they have to get really run heavy, control the clock. And when Burrow needs to, he needs to complete quick passes. You can't, drop back and hold the ball back there for 5 seconds, because this Tennessee pass rush will get to you. And they've been doing it pretty much all season long. Maybe the statistics aren't quite there, but they have been pressuring the quarterback. And that's one of the reasons why that secondary has been successful this year, because they pressure the quarterback and they cause problems and they end up getting turnovers out of it. So I think that the Bengals would be best served to come out balanced, a little run heavier than normal, and then implement the passing game off of the run game, not the other way around. But again, I don't know how they're going to come out, because it's a very young team. You heard Joe Burrow in his post-game conference. He considers this to be the new norm. The Bengals in the playoffs and winning playoff games, to him, this is a new norm, which if you're a fan, you want to see that. You want to see that confidence in your leader. But he's a very young guy. That team is young. And sometimes that comes back and it bites you in the behind. I hope that's not the case for him, but it very well could be. He's got to come out and be conservative and manage the game properly. This is a playoff game. This isn't a regular season game.
Yeah. Weather probably won't play a factor here. It's going to be about 38, 40 degrees, clear skies in Nashville. So nothing either of these teams really wouldn't be all that non-used to. Just an interesting matchup overall. I'm curious to see how this kicks us off into the playoffs. You got a pick on this one?
Yeah, all week long, like I said, I was really on the Bengals. I like what they had, and I like the weapons that they have, and their ability to mix, with Mixon in the backfield to really implement the run. I thought was what was going to give them the edge, and I kind of saw it playing out the way that I'm advising them to play it out. I saw them coming out really run heavy and using the pass as a secondary way to attack that defense. But as the week has progressed, and I keep thinking about this Titans team and how opportunistic that defense was, and how that offense was able to continue winning games regardless of who they were playing or who was available to them. So I think I'm going to go with the number 1 seed here, and I'm going to take the Titans here.
Yeah, I have a bunch of best bets on this game, so I won't give you every one of them. I'll just give you the Cincinnati Bengals plus 3.5. I think this is going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring. I'll get into that to some of our futures bets as well towards the end, because I think the Bengals maybe jump out here. If you remember that Seahawks game, I think it was week 2, week 3, where the Seahawks sort of jumped out on Tennessee and scored a bunch of points. And then in the, second half, Derrick Henry and the running game sort of wore them down. They came back. I think that game's going to play out similar here, where the Bengals are going to have a lot of energy, a lot of confidence, able to jump out. And then in the second half, the Titans sort of wear them down, start getting big chunk plays on the ground, and the Bengals sort of, lose confidence and don't know how to close this game out with their inexperience. So I'm going Bengals plus the 3.5. As long as it stays on that 3.5 number, I think that's a pretty solid bet for this to be a field goal game. Not only that, Tennessee tends to like to play a little bit of a barn burner type game, and so does Cincinnati if you watched last week's game. So we'll move on to the next game. I think personally this is going to be the biggest lopsided game on the card. Spread-wise, it would say that as well, but a lot of people are still frisky for the San Francisco 49ers.
Frisky for the Frisco?
Yeah, frisky for the Frisco here. I'm not one of them. I got my money last week on San Francisco 49ers, and I'm sort of cashing out on them. I think they've reached their sort of peak here, but Green Bay's a 5.5-point favorite. 47.5 is a total for the game. 3.5 on the first half line. 23.5 on the first half total on this. I know people are going, this is a bad matchup for Green Bay, blah, blah, blah. They've lost like 4 straight playoff, games to them. Granted, they start bringing up stuff when, like said, Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith were being quarterbacks to them. I'm not sure how much that factors other than Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback. Mike McCarthy is screwing somebody else over against the San Francisco 49ers in this. And I don't know how much that plays. I look at these teams and I just think the Packers are better. I think this is one where the Packers benefited off the bye. A lot of their defensive guys got healthy. Gives Aaron Rodgers essentially 2 weeks rest. He played the first half of that Week 18 game. Gets
By the way, I called that.
Yes, gets Devontae Adams a little healthier, gets the running backs a little healthier, and I just think the Green Bay Packers are a better team than the San Francisco 49ers. Basically, last week, the 49ers won the game because Deebo Samuel is a ridiculous football player and single-handedly caused about 2 or 3 scoring drives in this one. But I think the Green Bay Packers are just a better team and going to roll in this game. I'm curious how you see this because we've both been sort of hot and cold on the Niners. We see the skill guys they have, but team-wise, it just seems like they don't ever want to really pull away. And if they pull that, we might gain some yards, but we aren't going to pull away. Green Bay will just sort of knock them down and put them out for the count. So how do you see this game playing out?
Well, listen, I'm on the same boat as you. I do think that the Green Bay Packers are a much better team than the 49ers. Although if we were to break it down individually, I think this 49ers team is actually stacked. I think they have more depth at, the skill positions. I think that they have a better all-around player nucleus. But when it comes to actually playing football, I think that this Green Bay team is probably the best we currently have of all the teams that are left. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have Aaron Rodgers on that team. So obviously, you're going to favor them a little bit. But listen, if the 49ers want to get in this game, there's a couple of things they have to do. One, they have to play solid defense, which they're capable of, and we know that they are. The issue now arises, is Bosa going to be back? And if he is he going to be 100%? He's going to have any lingering side effects after that concussion, which knocked him out of the game? You saw when he was out of that game completely flipped around, and the Cowboys started making a comeback. Because he is a very impactful player. That's how important he is to that team. And you got to keep the ball out of Jimmy G's hands. I know that he's their guy right now, and they've got full confidence in him, at least as this season is concerned. But I don't think that you can depend on him. We saw last week versus the Cowboys. He started making mistakes. The
Cowboys got back in the game.
Exactly. They were dominating that game as long as they kept playing solid defense and a good running game. And that's what the 49ers are built to do. That's what they are. They're a physical team that's going to pound the rock and stop you from scoring points. So if they can do that, they'll stay in this game. And I think they can. I think they're going to show up, and I think that they're going to do enough to stay within this game. But ultimately, I just think that the Packers play much better as a team, and they got Aaron Rodgers in the backfield. So that, it's obviously a huge boost. So I'm going to roll with the Packers in this one, although I do think that it's going to be a little tighter than people anticipate.
Yeah. The other thing I'm thinking the weather plays a factor here. It's going to be 9 degrees in Green Bay. You take San Francisco, who played last week in Dallas, goes back to San Francisco, then flies over to Green Bay. That's a pretty hard travel schedule, and it's basically 3 different, temperature molds. You got Dallas, which is, pretty warm. You go to San Francisco, which I'm not going to say is warm. I'd go mild, mid-40s.
It can get pretty cool down there.
Mid-40s, 50s, cold for Southern people, I'd say. And then, you go to Green Bay where life shouldn't even really exist in the world. So I think that'll play a little bit of a factor. I'm curious just how this game's going to play out, because a part of me thinks the Packers are just going to do their thing where they jump on them early, get up big, and sort of close up shop. And then I could see sort of the other thing. I mentioned the Packers off the buys last year, getting off to that slow start. And it sort of plays out that way where Packers get off to a bit of a slow start. Maybe the Niners have a handful of scripted plays early, get up, and then the Niners do their, sort of thing where, whoops, we can't close out this game. Aaron Rodgers leads a couple drives in that fourth quarter, and then they put it away there. those are the only things I'm sort of thinking. Both things sort of lead me to Green Bay wins the game. I just don't know if it'll be the way the Packers have played most of the regular season, where they just jump out on you and sort of salt the game away, or they sort of start slow and then make that comeback and sort of put them away late in that fourth quarter.
I will say this, and it's probably not a popular opinion, but if the weather's really bad, this Packer team is basically been middle of the pack, no pun intended, when it comes to rush defense. And the 49er team, if there's one thing that we know they do great, it's run the ball. They're a very physical team. So if we get really bad weather, I know that this Niner team is not accustomed to playing in bad weather, but it's the NFL. You know, it's a 1 week thing. If they can get through it, they'll be fine the following week. But if they can turn this into a very ugly, gritty, rushing type of attack, I think the 49ers actually have the edge. So I still wouldn't count out Aaron Rodgers even in bad weather, because he's accustomed to playing in bad weather. You know, he's spent his whole career there in Lambeau, and Lambeau's not known for having, let's say, super nice weather when it comes to playoff time. So I will say that if it plays out that way, I do give the Niners a shot to possibly come out as with an upset win, but it's hard to pick against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, the other thing, on the injury front, Whitney Merciless has been back to practice. They haven't activated him, but he's good enough to play, a handful of snaps. I think that really, really helps their rush defense in that midseason. When they had Whitney and a couple of their other guys, that's when their defense really, really looked really solid. It sort of tailed off to the ends as injuries built up. But a couple of those guys are coming back. I don't know if Merciless is officially coming back, but he was at practice last week during the bye week. He sort of picked up the reps here. How much can he play? That's also, you never know. So, but if he can get back there, I do think that'll help their run defense a little bit as well, and let those two edge rushers get off and sort of pressure Jimmy G into. You just know there are a couple mistakes always coming in a Jimmy G game. All right. Do you have a pick for this one?
Yeah, like I said, I could definitely see so many different scenarios where the 49ers come into Lambeau and pull the upset. And again, not a very popular opinion, but I think out of all the teams left in the NFC, the best team with the shot to beat the Packers is this 49er team, just because of how physical they can be. If they stray away from that and put the ball and put too much on Jimmy G, then I think this turns around. It's an easy win for the Packers, but I can't foresee that happening. So I'm going to say the Packers pull off the win here in a close one.
Yeah. I have the Packers in a couple different best bets, but not as much as I have Cincinnati in there. But I do have Packers minus 5.5 on the spread here. I think this will be probably the one blowout of the four games we have. We'll move to Sunday here, and this one's a fun one. I think this is probably the one I'm most intrigued with. I'm intrigued with Buffalo, Kansas City as well, just because I wonder if we're going to get both teams just starting to launch, long balls, because teams have been playing them not to play deep, and they both want to show out here on the offensive side of things. But this one I'm really, really intrigued by, mostly because I think the last 2 years, we've talked about it, I think the Rams match up really, really well versus Tampa Bay. They can get that front four pass rush. That is what bothers Brady. You can drop enough guys in coverage to where when he does his checkdowns and his underneath stuff, you let him catch it, you make that tackle. Essentially, that's been their defense for 2/3 of the season, except when they decide to get aggressive and actually make defensive plays. And then you flip things onto the offensive side of things. And this is where, it gets a little tricky because basically all of last year and the first half of this year, they've sort of been a wing it, kind of team. Lots of passes, break down this secondary, and that's why I thought they matched up well versus Tampa Bay here. But their success this year has come when they've been able to pound the ball, run the ball, do a little play action, sort of old school early McVay Rams style, where it's basically a lot of play action, a lot of under center. I thought, last week's game versus Arizona, say what you will about Arizona forgetting there was a playoff game, but I thought that was sort of the perfect game plan, pound the ball, play action off Matt Stafford. Cooper Kupp was getting doubled. You have Odell Beckham, getting one-on-one coverage versus bad cornerbacks, and you take advantage of that. But then you got the other side of the matchup here. You got the Tampa Bay Run Defense, probably the best thing they do, especially now that, White and Levante David are healthy. Man in that middle, Vita Vea last week was just basically living in the Philadelphia Eagles backfield. So it's really tricky for me how this game plays out because it's just so interesting. Do the Rams go back to the style that's been successful versus these Tampa Bay Bucks? They're 2-0 versus them. Granted, regular season games, but they beat them up pretty good in both those games. Or do they go to their style where they're trying to pound the run, sort of playing into the Tampa Bay Bucks defensive hands and really try to just grind this game and make it a close game? So I'm really curious how this game plays out. It's probably the one I'm most intrigued with because I think I've been staring at this for 2 years for the Rams to get in the playoffs and play the Bucs so I could put a big bet on it. And now sort of their offensive philosophy has changed a little bit. And now I'm getting a little scared that their offensive philosophy sort of plays right into the Tampa Bay Bucs' hands here. So the spread is 3 in this game, 48.5 on the total, 2.5 on the first half line, 23.5 on the total. So as a Rams fan, how are you looking at this game here? It's just really sort of a mind cramp on how this thing goes.
Yeah, listen, obviously, I'm a big Ram fan, and obviously this is the game that I'm most excited about because it has the biggest implications for me personally, at least. But listen, you said it. This Ram team pretty much all season long was a pass first team, and they were running the ball was secondary to them, and they had some success. But we've seen them have the most success this year.
Tampa team.
Yeah. But also, this is a different Tampa team. The defense is banged up, so they've got different pieces there. Not necessarily that they're worse by any means, but I wouldn't say that they're better than they were. But this is the thing. You have Tom Brady on the other side, okay? So these are a couple concerns that I have. One, my biggest concern is they go back to a passing first attack, which ideally on paper you would think this is probably what they should do just based off how banged up that secondary for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is. But I still think this is playoff football. And the way you win playoff football is by being balanced, and playing solid defense. One, I think that defense, I'm not too concerned about the defense. I think that if they can get pressure with, just rushing 4 guys, they'll have some success. But this is the thing. You're going up against Tom Brady. Even if you have success, he's still going to gouge you here and there. That's just what he does. Probably one of the smartest quarterbacks to ever play the game. I think he said they did an interview with him last week, and he talked about how he knows what he's going to do before he even snaps the ball. He's already got it played out in his head. And that's just, it goes to show the work ethic, and not just that, but the football IQ that this guy possesses. So one of the reasons why he's been playing the league so long. Tampa Bay does a pretty good job at protecting him, but they do struggle against teams that have really good pass rush, which is something the Rams tend to do. They get after the quarterback, especially with Aaron Donald down the middle. He wreaks havoc just about everywhere. The issue is that if you need to rush more than 4, you're going to leave too many openings for Tom Brady, and nobody gets rid of the ball faster than Tom Brady. So he will eat you up. He will eat you alive. He'll dink and dunk all day long and get to the end zone that way. That's just the way he'll do it. That's just how good he is. So you can't rush more than 4 guys every single time. You have to be able to get pressure with just 4 guys. And when you're on offense, even though Tampa Bay defense is basically made their name off of stopping the run, you can't be shy about it. You have to pound the rock. Cam Akers looked really good last week. He looked really aggressive. He was running with a purpose. And that's what we're going to need in this matchup. We're going to need him to pound the rock. And not just him, but also Sony Michel. And if Henderson gets in there too, we saw Funk get in there last week also for a couple of snaps. All these guys have to come out and run really aggressively. You do have to make sure that you're keeping an eye where V is, because he's a beast, man. And you're going to have to make sure that you keep your block on him, because if not, he's going to wreak havoc himself. So I got the Rams winning in this one, but that should come as no shock for anyone because I'm a big Ram fan. But as you mentioned it, I think that styles make football games, and I think the Rams have the right type of style to affect not just this good Tampa Bay defense, but also a banged up Tampa Bay defense. So I think if you had a shot at really beating Brady in the playoffs, this is probably your best shot.
Yeah. So you're leaning towards try to run this ball a little bit, see if you can hit him on that play action on a couple plays with Odell. I'm assuming, much like last week, Kupp's going to be double, triple teamed. It's going to be pretty hard, to really get him, and you'll probably have to force the ball into him unless you can find little spots where you can hide him and get him matched up. But I'm assuming much like Arizona last week, Kupp covered. Beckham will probably get the one-on-ones here. And that's where I want to... If you're going to play the run style, I mean, you're pretty much conceding that this will probably be a close game. Granted, maybe they come out like Arizona and Tom Brady is throwing passes out of the end zone on his backside 5 yards straight up in the air. I don't know. Seems unlikely. But you go to that run style, which I think they can be successful with, especially hitting them on that play action. You're probably sort of shrinking this game and going to make it tight and close. So under 4 minutes, how much confidence do you have that the Rams can sort of make that drive to get the points to win this game and keep Tampa Bay sort of out of that end zone? Because I think that's probably Brady's best skill as a quarterback, is always being in the game. And then on that last drive, he's able to find the plays and make the plays. So if this game is one of those tight games, which, I think it's probably going to be, unless they come out, fly around and throw the football all over the place and it's successful, I don't know. It seems like a sound strategy. It worked, in week 3 or 4. It worked last year with Jared Goff. Playoffs is a different animal, but how confident you in, last 4 minutes, you can get the score, you can keep Tampa from getting the score?
I'll say that I'm confident, but I'm also trying to be realistic. You saw Matthew Stafford struggle over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, where he had multiple turnovers in multiple games, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that they just could not implement the run, and it was basically put on his shoulders. Now, Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback. You look at the numbers. I know that people like to throw dirt on him because he didn't finish the season strong, but you look at the numbers he had for the season, and he had a really good season. As far as Kupp's concerned, you saw last week he was being doubled. Go back and look at the numbers of that game. He still put up pretty good numbers for a wide receiver who was getting doubled basically all game long. But as much as I miss having Robert Woods, we got so lucky that we traded for that we picked up Odell Beckham right at the opportune time, because he's a lot more familiar with the system that we have in place. The 6 touchdowns that he scored so far basically tells you the whole story. He's been a serious weapon for this Rams team, and he's also been a we, not me player so far in a Rams uniform, which is huge. So I think that if it comes down to the last 4 minutes, Rams have the ball. I'm confident because of those weapons on the outside. Not just that, but you also have Higbee, who provides a big weapon for Matthew Stafford down the middle. So I'm confident, especially because Brady doesn't play defense. If Brady was a defensive player, then maybe he'd be singing a different tune here. I'm more confident in the offense having an opportunity to win the game with 4 minutes left on the clock than I would be in the defense stopping the Bucs as Tom Brady's trying to get the game-winning drive.
Yeah, I think coaching and clock management probably be really, really important in this game. Bruce Arians has always been a little iffy on that. Sean McVay, he's good at times, but he can also get a little wacky. I think a little bit of that is just, is just sort of personality and cocky arrogance that he sort of rolls around with him. But management-wise, I think McVay's definitely probably an upgrade over Bruce Arians. But you also sort of have to factor Tom Brady in there, who probably is more of the coach, certainly on the offensive side of things, than Bruce Arians. So just a really intriguing game. I'm really, really interested to see how these teams come out. how this game plays out and who ends up coming out of here the winner. Because I think the Rams probably are the better team here. It's just sort of overcoming that hurdle of Tom Brady and, the mystique there. So what do you got on a pick on this one?
I'm actually going to take the Rams in this one. I believe it's +3.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Rams with the points. I think that even if they somehow end up losing the game, which I don't see it happening, but if they somehow end up losing that game, I think that's going to be a really tight game just because of the way that they're going to play this game out, at least the way it's playing out in my head.
Yeah. I got a lot of best bets on this one as well. I got a loaded list this week, so
listen,
be prepared.
Just so you know, the pressure's on you because I've got my notepad right here and I'm ready for your best bets. I may have to jump on a few of these because as far as best bets go, I think I've got probably one or two. So
I hope you got a couple pencils. So when it's a light slate, I can do my research early enough where I only have to go through 4 games and not 16. So it makes for much easier sorting through the betting odds there. So I got Rams +3 as well on this one. All right, next up, the last one of the week, the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Sunday is going to be one hell of a playoff day because I'm really interested in Rams-Bucks, and I think that's going to be the best game of the weekend. But this one is highly, highly intriguing as well. I think probably the best 2 AFC teams over the last 2 years, easily the best 2 offensive teams, probably, in football right now, and maybe the 2 best quarterbacks in football right now. So, just interesting, both coming off blowout wins versus teams who might not have belonged in the playoffs. Pat's probably a little more so than the Steelers, but nonetheless, sort of a warm-up game to get to this one. And it just interesting overall. Kansas City 1.5-point favorites here, 53.5 on the total, half point on the first half line to Kansas City, and 27 on the first half total. What sort of defensive game do you think this one will turn out to be?
I think that everybody is anticipating somewhat of a offensive explosion in this game, and I wouldn't be completely shocked if that were the case, but I think we all have to take a step back.
Because my best bets might have a lot to do with juicing overs to very high numbers and getting good odds.
Now, listen, I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what happens when you look at both of these teams, look at their quarterbacks and the weapons that they have to play with. These are very offensively stacked teams. But if I take a step back here and just kind of, look at it from a different angle, you're talking about, the Buffalo Bills, who had one of the better defenses pretty much all year long. And then you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, who had an improved defense in the second half of the season. So don't be shocked if somehow this game turns into a defensive struggle. I don't know what the weather conditions look like for this matchup, but just the game itself, I think this is going to be a very entertaining game. And as I said, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a lot of defense here, but I'm expecting a lot of offense. And offense always makes for a very fun game, especially when your team isn't involved. So I'm looking for an offensive explosion from both teams. The question mark is who can do more against the opposing defense. And I think that's where the questions come into play.
Yeah. Your friendly weatherman here, 30 degrees, a few clouds. So I don't think anything too bad, especially for Buffalo or Kansas City this time of year. So I don't think weather will play much of a factor in really any of these games whatsoever, other than maybe Green Bay, which will be extremely cold. Not a ton of wind, so, that sort of mitigates it, at least probably for some people. Not for me. When it drops under about 70, I start complaining. But nonetheless.
Oh, I remember. I invited you to that Vols game. I remember that it was, I believe, like 41 degrees at kickoff. By the time we got to the second half, it was down to below 30. So you were not there, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. I remember pictures of you bundled up like a psycho in that game because
and it still wasn't enough.
And it still wasn't enough. 100,000 people also ruminating body heat and not enough to sit through that. But yeah, this is just interesting. I'm curious which defense can get, a couple big plays. I don't know who's going to get stops, but both Allen and Mahomes, really, really good quarterbacks. But I think you'd say also risk takers. They'll, hang it out there. Allen will hold that ball in the pocket and try to shed, as many people as he can to try to let his receivers get downfield and try to make a play that sometimes leads to fumbles. Mahomes has been much more aggressive in forcing balls this season than we've seen the last couple years, which has led to a handful of, more interceptions. So I think that probably comes into play. I don't know if I trust anybody who would get up in this game because I think both teams just have, an ability to come back quick in this game. The thing I'm probably most interested in is which one of these teams gets their run game going. Jerick McKinnon has been a nice little revelation for the Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably coming back this week. Also, Darrell Williams probably coming back this week. You've seen Singletary the last couple weeks play really good football. And then you got the big horse, Josh Allen back there. And I think if you go back to watching the Bills-Chiefs game in the regular season, it was one of the few games where they said, we're going to take Josh Allen and we're going to run him. And he was really, really effective versus that Chiefs defense, mostly because he's just as big as pretty much everybody on that Chiefs defense. So I think the biggest factor in this is which team can get the running game going to sort of keep the ball out of the other team's offensive hands. And I sort of like the way the Bills have done that the last handful of weeks. And the Chiefs, though they're getting some running backs back, I wonder if it's going to be a little bit of guys banged up and can Jerick McKinnon, keep this up and play. So I'm really curious in that aspect sort of how this game plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. This is probably the game that I had the toughest as far as picking a winner, because I really like what the Chiefs have done this year. And, they have a much improved defense towards the second half of the season. But this Bills team, even though they've had their ups and downs, they've been pretty consistent throughout the entire year, at least defensively. The offense has been kind of sputtering. It really depends on the running game.
They scored 9 points once versus the Jaguars.
Yeah, I remember that game because I think I had big money on the Bills to win that game. So
they didn't
cost me a parlay
versus the Patriots, but one game they scored 9 versus the Jags.
Yeah, against the Jaguars out of all teams. But listen, I think that this game obviously has it has the makings of an offensive explosion here. But I think that the winner of this matchup is going to be who can implement the run a lot better. We've seen Buffalo kind of have success, over the last couple of weeks. Kansas City had a pretty good week last week as far as running the ball was concerned. And they did it against a Pittsburgh team that at times was actually shut down defense when it came to the running attack. So I think I was a little more impressed with the way they ran the ball. Not to say that the Patriots are slouches on defense, because that was probably their best unit all year long was their defense. And both teams had a lot of success. So it's really hard for me to get a feel for this one. This is one that I will say I already picked the winner in one of my parlays, but I'm not confident. I could honestly be swayed either way here.
Yeah, I think this is the one where I sort of went away from making a pick because I just don't quite know, and I think it'll sort of be decided by a couple probably random plays, maybe a deflection here or there, and it leads to an interception. Maybe a special teams play out of somebody here. I think there's a very good chance something sort of freaky could be what turns this game in this one. But I do think it'll be really, really entertaining, sort of to watch these guys, see if Buffalo can maybe sort of climb up that throne there and sit on it for a little bit as sort of the team of the AFC. They made it to the conference finals last year versus these Kansas City Chiefs. Weren't quite ready to ascend. Are they going to be ready to ascend here and sort of say, we're a power in the AFC here as well, and maybe we end up getting a sort of Colts Patriots sort of maybe 10-year window here where these two teams are sort of battling it out, and the AFC runs through one of them. Certainly, if both these quarterbacks stay healthy, that's probably a high end of probability there.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, so you got a pick on this one?
I do. All week long, and even in one of my picks, I actually have the Chiefs. But right now, just off feel alone, I'm going to roll with the Bills here. I believe the Bills are the underdogs in this one, if I'm not mistaken.
The Bills are 1.5-point underdogs.
Oh gosh, you can't even call that underdogs.
I don't know. Sure, you're like Mark and picking his underdog at 1.
Yeah, I can't even consider. Even I can't consider that an underdog. So listen, I'm just gonna be like Sparky. I'm gonna roll with the Bills. I have no real inkling as to why, but I'm just gonna go with my gut feeling here. Even though I've got the Chiefs on one of my parlays, I'm gonna roll with the Bills in this one.
Yeah, I'm going with the over 53.5, and that's one of many that are coming in the best bets that have been pushed. So we get a shootout in here. So I got over 53.5 on a pick on this game. All right, so those are the 4 games on the playoff weekend. We did a little bit of futures betting and talked about it last week. I wasn't real aggressive and made any bets, but I was aggressive this week and made some future bets. So I know they aren't your favorite things to do. They scare you a little bit. A lot of money being held for numerous weeks and usually long odds. So it's not your favorite thing, but I like to have a little bit of fun with my futures here. And I made a handful of futures bets this week. So I'm going to go Super Bowl finalists first here. And I treated this sort of like I do my horse racing. If you see a favorite in a horse race that you really, really think can't lose, the best thing sort of to do is take him to win and do a trifecta, superfecta, and wheel all the other horses in the field to finish there. And as long as your horse wins, you're usually making pretty good money here. So I looked at this, and I got a favorite here to go to the Super Bowl, and I'm going to ride the Green Bay Packers. I think Green Bay's got a pretty easy game this week that puts them in the conference finals. I think that Tampa Bay Rams game might be one of those where those two teams battle and beat each other up. You've already seen Tampa Bay last week start to get beat up a little bit. And the Rams go in Arizona, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, I think will be a difficult road trip. So I'm putting the Green Bay Packers and riding them. And I got Super Bowl finalist, and I got Super Bowl finalist Kansas City Chiefs plus 525. Super Bowl finalist Buffalo Bills with Green Bay at 7-1. And Tennessee Titans, the 2-1 seeds, unbelievably 9-1 on that. So if you take all 3 of those, you cross off Cincinnati, assuming they don't make the Super Bowl, and I think a miracle would have to happen there. So you're probably pretty safe on the AFC side of things, going Tennessee, Buffalo, Kansas City. And then as long as Green Bay gets there, you're winning some money here, and you take sort of 2 points off of that. So like Kansas City, Green Bay at 5-1, you take that down, lose your other 2 bets. That's a 3-1 thing. If you look at it, like Green Bay is even money to get to the playoffs, so I think there's value there. Buffalo, take 2 away, that equals out to 5-1 on your odds. And then Tennessee, Green Bay, if we can get that one, that's a 7-1 with your other 2 bets there. So I really liked sort of taking Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl and then wheeling the finalists there. I know you're going to be a little bit against it, but I'm speaking to the better half over there. Make some sneaky bets on this one, and don't tell him, and just cheer after you win some money.
Oh, I'm sure she's going to if she hasn't already. Especially after she watches the show, she'd definitely jump on a few of those. Listen, I've as far as like futures go, I've only got a couple here that I felt confident in. Obviously, between the two of us, you know who the more conservative gambler is here. But when I was looking at the odds, for example, for the AFC outright winner, which is basically the team that's going to represent the Super Bowl, their conference in the Super Bowl, I'm just looking at the odds. Obviously, you're not going to get a lot of good odds with the Chiefs, who, even though they're not the number one seed by a lot of people, they're considered to be the top team.
They're certainly the favorite of money-wise.
Yeah, but I did think Tennessee did offer pretty good value, especially being the number one seed. We know that they got rest. We know that they're getting Henry back, and whether he's 100% or not, I think that just having him on the field makes defensive coordinators at least have the game plan for, trying to stop him, which it's really hard to do when he's healthy. But I think Tennessee at plus 300, there's some value there. And when you're talking about, 4 teams that are left in the,
4 teams.
So there's 4 teams left in the AFC. I was going to say 4 matches. There's 4 teams left in the AFC, and 2 of those are going to get knocked out this week. If the Titans can somehow find a way to pull off a win against this Bengal team that's up and coming, gritty, team, I think they have a pretty good shot at going all the way, especially the way that team's built. Listen, they beat the Bills this year. They beat the Chiefs this year. So they got that confidence going in. So I think Tennessee plus 300 is pretty good. Coming out of the NFC, this is where it's a little bit of a twist. The only way that I could see any value coming out of the NFC is if you think that the underdogs are going to make some noise this week, which is either the 49ers or the Rams. If you take the Rams to make it to the Super Bowl, represent the NFC, you're looking at plus 400 odds. Now, I know that, you look at the numbers and the teams that are left here, probably not the most favorable you have, but let's just say that somehow the 49ers managed to upset the Packers in this one. Even if the Rams beat the Bucks, you're looking at a matchup that the 49ers have been successful at so far this season. They beat the Rams twice, being very, out physically than basically. And the 49ers are plus 600. So it gives you a little more value. If, like I said, if somehow the underdogs happen to win this week, then I think those numbers are obviously going to go down. But I think as far as value is concerned, if you got a few extra bucks that you want to drop, you're a Ram fan, 49er fan, I think there's some value there.
Yeah, definitely so. You mentioned it. I think really the value with the Rams, looking at those odds, I think you're better off taking the money line this week versus Tampa Bay, because they're going to have to win that game anyway to get to the Super Bowl. And then if you look at it, they're probably 4 to 6 point underdogs in Green Bay, and you're getting probably 2 to 1 odds there. So basically, you have a better chance of going money line in these 2 weeks if you think the Rams are going to continue than if you just make one wager at 425, and then of course you're going to be suckered into making game day bets with them anyway, so you're losing probably twice your money if they end up going down. So you're better off probably just playing them money line. And even if San Francisco pulls the upset, you mentioned it, I'm not sure they make the Rams more than about a 2-point favorite with the basic history that's gone on there. And it's not like San Francisco Green Bay history where we're talking about games Colin Kaepernick played. I mean, it's basically been Sean McVay and Shanahan history the last couple years there. So, I mean, even I think the Rams would probably be close to even money favorites in that one. So you're basically better off just going money line in these 2 games if you think they're going to win the next 2 to get to the Super Bowl, then sort of taking that 425 and having the difficult game this week versus the Bucks, and then having another difficult game no matter who comes out of there. You're better off sort of maybe splitting your money if they happen to lose one of those. I got a couple Super Bowl exact results. Much like my Green Bay, I'm wheeling it out. Green Bay's involved in every one of these. As long as Green Bay goes to the Super Bowl, the champ is winning some money here. So we gotta
Knock on wood.
We got a lot riding on it. Aaron Rodgers is going to snap his leg in half on like the first series of the game.
Don't you even say that, because if it happens now, you're going to feel like you're the reason for it.
I'm going to have to watch my bets go down the drain with Jordan Love, who I don't even think can throw a forward pass right now. But you got Green Bay to beat Kansas City at 11-1, and then you also have Kansas City to beat Green Bay at 11-1. You got Green Bay to beat Buffalo at 12-1, Buffalo to beat Green Bay at 16-1, and Green Bay to beat Tennessee at 16-1, and Tennessee to beat Green Bay at 25-1. And you have really nice odds there because you take about 5 of those points away. Because if it gets there, you're going to win one of them because you have all your bases covered if those teams get there. Plus, you win your Super Bowl finalist bet as well. So really, you're in good shape. If you think Green Bay is sort of a lock to get to the Super Bowl, and if you look at the betting odds, it's basically almost even money at 145 to get to the Super Bowl. So I think there's pretty good value there, definitely so. So I really like this Super Bowl exact result, Super Bowl finalist result. Sort of crossing off the Bengals, thinking they aren't going to get to the Super Bowl, and wheeling those other 3 teams that you think probably are the best shot to get there with that, and playing off that. And you mentioned the Tennessee Titans. They actually are the best value in the AFC. They are the 1 seed. They have 2 wins, both over Kansas City and Buffalo. And you slice one of those 2 teams in half that you think might actually be better than Tennessee because someone between Kansas City and Buffalo is losing. So really, they just got to beat one of those teams to get to the finals. So I think there's a lot of value in Tennessee if you want to hop on that. Granted, maybe you think Cincinnati's there, but if you're playing it, Cincinnati is not technically in their class just yet. So I think there's value definitely in Tennessee to play the futures, probably the best one to play futures with.
I do have a couple of other bets, and these are basically just to get to the championship games. And again, one of these I'm playing based off the fact that I think there's a chance for upsets here in the NFC round. And for the AFC Championship game, I've got the Bills going up against the Titans here at plus 225, which again, I mentioned if you have the Titans at plus 300 to make it to the Super Bowl, then you've got a little bit of value there. And for the NFC, sorry, my dog's going crazy all of a sudden. And for the NFC, I've got 2 different scenarios. I got one scenario
like your
which
bets.
No, he loves them. That's why he wanted to jump on me. He's like, I want to jump on those bets too.
He's trying to save you from clicking the accept button.
It's already been accepted, so there's no going back on that. He's gonna have to miss out on treats this week. But for the NFC side, I've got which I think is the most possible scenario. I've got the Packers and the Rams going into the Super Bowl. Sorry, not Super Bowl, the NFC Championship game at plus 220. But in case there is that upset with the 49ers, or if you're a 49er fan and you want to bet on your team, the 49ers versus the Rams is plus 575. So obviously, there's a reason why it's at plus 575. It's because it's less likely than all the other scenarios. But I think that if you are a big underdog bettor and you feel like this is a week for underdogs, at least in the NFC side of things, then plus 575 is about the best you're going to get.
Yeah, I think some of those are really, really nice. I got a couple of sort of daily specials I put in my best bets, but I wrote a couple of, playoff specials that I liked overall. Highest scoring game of the weekend, Bengals Titans at plus 450. I think this has a chance. Now, granted, Bills Chiefs pretty much locked down for that, but that's at plus 115. But I really think Rams-Bucks is going to be a pretty low-scoring game, limited possessions. Same with 49ers-Packers, especially playing with that, sort of cold weather type game and the way those 2 teams don't really rush into offense. So you're getting 450 basically to go head-to-head versus the Bills-Chiefs. We know this Bengals team can come with the offense, and I don't think people know, but Yes, the Titans run the ball a lot, but they're all pretty good, high-powered offense. So I think there's pretty good value there at plus 450. Also, this is the one I really liked, was highest scoring game on Saturday. You got Bengals Titans even money and 49ers Packers at minus 120. I think there's a lot of value there. Even money. Bengals Titans is a higher scoring game than 49ers Packers. A couple others I'm looking at. Highest scoring AFC game. I thought there was a lot of value in this. Granted, you're going up against Chiefs Bills, but it was 640 for Bengals Titans to be, highest scoring game. That seems like a lot of value when you only have to beat one other game, and you never know what's going to occur there. So I thought there was pretty good value for two teams who are just as good at scoring. Highest scoring team on the day, plus 11 to 1 for the Cincinnati Bengals. If they're going to win this game, they're going to have to score points and be in that 35 to probably maybe even 40 range. So I think 11 to 1, pretty good value there. And then highest scoring team on Sunday, I thought this was really good value. Bills at plus 210. If you think the Bills are going to win the game, they're going to have to outscore the Chiefs. And like I said, I think Bucs-Rams will be more of a defensive contest. I don't think that's going to be a real high-scoring game, So I like that Bills plus 210. You get a little bit more value there than just taking the Bills straight money line. Granted, you have to go up against another game, but I thought there was value there. And then to flip things over, on the lowest scoring game, Rams-Bucs was plus 250. I thought that was pretty good value because I think the Packers have a chance to score a lot of points. I think Tennessee Bengals has be a little bit higher scoring game than you think. And I just cross off Buffalo and, Kansas City. I know there's going to be points scored there. So I think this Rams-Buck team, two teams who are sort of got flashy weapons on offense, but both teams are based defensively. And I think people lose sort of sight of that. So I thought there was value there. And then lowest scoring team, Buccaneers at plus 700. If the Rams are going to win this game, the defense is going to have to be the one to step up there. So a lot of value at plus 700 for lowest scoring team. And then lowest scoring team on Sunday. This was one of my sort of favorite ones. I put it in my best bets. Buccaneers plus 225. If you think the Rams are winning the game, the other game is Buffalo and Kansas City. That's a pretty good bet there for the Bucs as the lowest scoring team. That's if you think the Rams are winning the game there. So, and then a couple passing yards. Joe Burrow plus 550 to be the leading passer. I thought that was decent value. Once again, if you think they're going to get behind, he's probably going to be throwing a lot, racking up a lot of yards. If you think the Bengals are going to win, he's probably going to be throwing a lot, racking up a lot of yards. So basically, you look out for Mahomes and Allen. But I think then at 3, you got Joe Burrow. Most receiving yards, I threw a couple guys down here. T. Higgins at 20 to 1, I thought was pretty good value because I think they're going to probably the Titans are going to single him up, so look for him to have a pretty big day. Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs, both at 10 to 1 and 11 to 1, I thought was pretty good value. And then a flyer on the rushing yards. Deontay Foreman is 20 to 1 on the rushing yards. We don't know how healthy Henry is. I think if you look at all these other teams, they're basically 2 and 3 back teams. The Titans are basically a 1-back team. So if Henry, comes in, takes 2 carries, isn't healthy, it's probably going to Deontay Foreman, and at 21, a little bit of value there. And then the other one, wild card, Josh Allen is 20 to 1 too. He did have 60 yards on 6 carries. If you look at his game versus Kansas City earlier in the year, I think he had like 95-yard rushing. So I thought there was a decent value there as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot of value in those. So I'm going to have to write some of these down.
You'll just have to replay the show over and over and pause and start. But I put a couple of those in my best bets as well. The ones I really, really like, and I'm probably going to put money on a handful of those as well. So I guess we'll get into our best bets. I got a big list this week, much bigger than last week. What do you got on the best bets?
I've got 2.
All right, I got...
That already sounds like a lot.
19 total bets
Oh my gosh.
going over the playoff weekend.
What if I told you you have to single it down to 5? Would you be able to do that?
I don't think so, because I got a lot in here, and some of them sort of build into the other ones.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I go first, and I'll get my 2 out of the way. That way you can give us your 1,900 best bets of the week, and it gives me a chance to write some of these down.
All right, you give us your 2 for the week. Best bet.
All right, so
Achilles
my
Reign,
best
2.
My best bet is my first one is San Francisco Green Bay game. I like the over 47.5. I think that both of these teams are going to have the ability to score a lot of points. The thing is, will the 49ers defense show up? Will Bosa be 100%? These are all questions that are up in the air. And because of that, obviously Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, so we're not going to count him out. So I got this game going over 47.5. And my second one is no surprise, my Rams +3.
All right, so big better this week, Achilles Reign, 2 bets. All right, you ready to do some writing? Okay, we're going to start out with the Cincinnati Bengals, Tennessee Titans game. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals +3.5. I'm going to put that with the money line at +160. And I'm going to take the over at 47.5. So 3 bets on that game. Bengals +3.5, money line +160, over at 47.5. All right, next up, the Green Bay game. Little bit of a dud here. Green Bay -5.5 for San Francisco. Yes. All right, next up, we got the Rams. I got the Rams +3. I got the Rams on the money line at +125, and I got the under at 48.5 on the game overall. So Rams +3, Rams money line +125, under 48.5. All right, next up, we got a 3-team money line parlay with Green Bay, the Rams, and the Bills, which goes at +545. So not quite perfect odds on the 3-team parlay. Probably not the greatest value, but Green Bay, almost 3-1 favorites here. You put them, hope you get the 2 Rams and Buffalo, +554. Decent odds there. Then we're going to the Bills game. All right, lot of over-unders in this one. Bills Chiefs over 53.5. Bills win over 59.5 +425. And then adjusted over-under total, Bills Chiefs over 60 +170. So we got 2 over-unders trying to get over to the 61 with a Bills win attached to it at +425. So we need a shootout and a Bills win, and we'll be living right on our trip to Vegas here if we can hit that one. Next up, I got a couple player props in this one. I got T. Higgins over 63.5 receiving yards. I got Jimmy Garoppolo over a half interception at -140. I got Alan Lazard over 18.5 yard reception at -115. I got Tom Brady over a half interception at -110. And I got your boy, Odell Beckham Jr., over a 19.5 yard reception at -125. We need one big play from Odell here off of play action. Then
he's been really good at that this season.
Yeah.
Since he's been with the Rams.
And then I mentioned a couple of the playoff specials that I liked. Most passing yards, Joe Burrow at +550. Highest scoring game on Saturday, Bengals Titans at even money. Highest scoring team, Bengals at 11-1. Lowest scoring team, Buccaneers at +700. Lowest scoring team on Sunday, Buccaneers at +225. Most receiving yards, Stephon Diggs at +11-1. And most rushing yards, Deontay Foreman 20-1, Josh Allen 20-1. All right. I think that's all 19 of my bets. I'm out of liquid and my voice is starting to go, but we got through it. So only a couple more weeks to bet on football. We got to get all we can in there. But Where can we find you, Achilles, before we wrap this show up?
You can find me on Twitter at TD Achilles or the brand new TikTok page, That Dude Achilles.
Well, definitely check out the TikTok page for That Dude Achilles. That's our show. We'll be back on maybe Monday or Tuesday, whichever day we choose to wrap this playoff weekend up. And we're out.